Well, I just want to thank you, Roger and Sandy, for having me. It is an honor to be here. And it's interesting coming in this morning because the atmosphere is so warm and friendly and just, it's like a family. It feels really much like a family. And Roger was telling me that Sandy, her gift is being like a mother. And I feel that. I don't know if you feel that, but she grabbed my hand and took me around, and I felt so comforted by that. So you are so blessed to have them. And the sense I got for this church as I was just walking in was that you have that DNA of love and compassion, that He wants to show His glory through your love and through not being weary and doing good things, loving your neighbors, loving the people that you work with and live with, and that He will give you the words at the right time when you are just loving and not growing weary in love. So thank you so much. All right, let me give you a little background. This is my family. I have a husband. So my name is Aimee Ghimire. Everyone say Ghimire. Very good. You could be Nepali. I don't even say it right, to be honest with you. My husband makes fun of me. My husband, his name is Silas. He is a wonderful man. He's a funny guy. He became a Christian in Madison, actually, about 15 years ago before we got married. And he is in digital marketing. He's in the marketing world. Then Annika is my oldest. She's 10. And she has her dad's humor. You can see the twinkle in her eye. And then Serena on the opposite side is 7. And she's a lot like me. She's just very industrious, hardworking little girl. Helps me whenever I need help. Then Priyasha's right in the middle. She's 6. And she is very loving and snuggly. Sweet little snuggler. And then Elena is 2 on my lap. And we call her Leanie Beanie. Leanie Beanie, and she is just actually the queen of the house, of course, right? She tells us all what to do. So that's funny. So my background is actually a missionary kid. My parents are from the East Coast. They went to become missionaries in Austria many years ago, 1970. So I and my 4 brothers were raised in Austria. And I can see some of these beautiful sights. Actually, coming to New Glarus was wonderful for me because I'm feeling a little bit like home. The green and also some of the houses and even the bread that Sandy, you gave me bread. It was so tasty this morning, and cheese, some of those things. So anyway, I am mostly a mom. That's what I say. I have 4 little girls. My main job is being a mom. And a wife, of course. You kind of forget that sometimes, don't we? But I also run along I'm the one who runs it. I rope in my husband, a company called New Wine Web Design. We create beautiful websites for businesses, and we also do all their online marketing. So if you ever have any questions, feel free to find me later. And if you at any point want to get in touch with me, just grab Roger and get my email or my phone number. If you have a question, something I said, or feel free to call me or email me. So our background is that we actually were in Madison for 5 years. So we lived in Madison, and we moved to Arizona to help start a church that came out of City Church, at that time Lake City, with Tom Alexander. So my husband and I went to Arizona. We helped start the church, and we now live in Arizona. So there's a picture of Arizona for you. We like hiking, but we don't hike in green, as you can tell. We flew into Minnesota. We're like, wow, everything's so green. Everything in Arizona is very brown. But so Wisconsin, I just want to tell you one thing. I don't know if you realize what a wonderful place Wisconsin is. When we left, we went to Arizona, we realized what we had left. It is warm and hospitable and friendly and very efficient. And I'll tell you what I mean by efficient. when we went to I went to my first deli counter in Arizona. I was standing there. I was the only one in line, and it took that lady about 15 minutes to get me my pound of ham. And I don't know why. First of all, I couldn't find her. Then she couldn't find the ham. And then she finally got it to me. And now in Wisconsin, on the east side of Madison, Woodman's, you go to your counter and you get your meat. And it comes fast. I tell you what. So anyway, random little fact about Wisconsin, but this is a good place to get deli meat. So remember that. And another thing is when we moved to Arizona, we moved from our first little house in Wisconsin to our second house in Arizona. And when we moved to our little ranch home off of Cottage Grove Road, it was a beautiful little, red brick and pale yellow ranch home. I had 5 neighbors within about 20 minutes bring me cookies. Maybe not 20, but within that first day, I had neighbors bring me cookies. And we were so blessed. When we moved to Arizona, nobody even said hello. So you are blessed. This is a wonderful, wonderful community. All right. So I am going to talk today. Well, first let me ask you a question. I want to, like a show of hands. If you consider yourself kind of a thankful personality, raise your hands for me. Like, yeah, I'm pretty thankful. All right. Now, if you're kind of more in the grumpy, realistic person, I see the glass half empty kind of person. We got a couple of those. Oh, wow. Just a couple. Wow, this is a great church. A very positive church. Maybe I don't need to preach a sermon. So you might, so most of you are Olafs. Everything is wonderful, right? Olaf is always thankful. Everything is beautiful. And then there's, of course, the couple of you who are grumpy. Things are not always good. So I am a very happy-go-lucky person, and I've had a really blessed life, missionary kid, and good family, and good health. But in Arizona, something happens to me where maybe it's the desert. I think it might be the desert. But I get grumpy, and I've noticed a sort of an increasing pattern as I've been there. And about maybe 6 months ago, I was just having a bad day. And I mean, everything was just bad. The weather is too hot. Even though it's January, it's too hot. And I've got allergies, and I'm sneezing everywhere. And my kid will not go potty when I want her to go potty. My husband's staying too late at work, and blah, blah, blah. And I was just having a bad day. And I'm like, okay, Lord, let me just go to my Bible and see what you got for me. And I was not expecting what I got that day. He took me to 1 Corinthians, and I started reading, and I read, now these things occurred as examples to keep us from setting our hearts on evil things. I was like, okay, something happened in the Old Testament as an example. I should pay attention so that I don't have, set my heart on something bad. So that I went on and I read this. Go ahead and read with me. We should not test Christ as some of them did and were killed by snakes. And do not grumble as some of them did and were killed by the destroying angel. Needless to say, I've read that a lot of times, but that day I was hit like what do they call? 10 of bricks. There you go. This is me, missionary kid, not knowing all my idioms very well. That day, the Lord hit me with this verse. And I realized I am grumbling, I am complaining, I am having a bad attitude. And in the desert, they were killed because of this. They grumbled and they were killed. Wow. So in the Old Testament, their whole life was cut off because of grumbling, because of a bad attitude. So needless to say, I decided to make a change. God convicted me. And I said, wow, I'm going to consciously not complain anymore. I choose to not complain about my circumstances. And so I want to ask you, I want to kind of throw it back to you. How do you live? Do you tend to grumble about things? Maybe just a little. Do you test the Lord like the Israelites did? Could it be possible that because you're grumbling, because you're kind of stuck in the desert in some places in your life, that you're not entering into fullness of destiny? You're not going the places where He wants you to go. So some of our problems are like this. Welcome to the desert. Isn't that beautiful? Arizona mountain. Some of our problems or the things in our life that we are tempted to grumble or complain about are huge, right? I mean, some of us are dealing with addiction. We're dealing with the loss of a loved one. We're dealing with a terminal illness, something that's really hard, a child that you've become estranged from. Those are big, big things, right? And we tend to want to complain about those. But there's also the molehills, right? Do you have molehills in Wisconsin? Yes, there are molehills. That's great. I don't think we have molehills. I heard there are voles, though, in Minnesota. Are there voles here? All right, you've got moles and voles. Very interesting. So some of our problems are actually really small little problems, right? You've got the leaky faucet. You've got the stub toe. You've got the baby who's just not going to sleep when you want her to go to sleep. Some of those smaller things. So I just want to invite you, as I go through the message today, to let the Lord put His finger on an area in your life. Put His finger on some area where He wants to highlight. He wants to touch today. And it could be a place that's just a molehill, where you just kind of grumble about this every day. Or it could be something huge, a devastation, an area where you're really desperate. I just want to invite you to do that as we kind of move on. All right, so I'm going to just quickly pray, and then we'll get into the message. Father, I just invite you, Holy Spirit, to put your finger on the area of our life that you want to touch today. Lord, we just say we are willing, Lord, to let you highlight to us what area you want to touch. Father, you are the God that knows what lies hidden in darkness. So we ask that you bring that to light, that you bring revelation and healing and freedom. In Jesus' name, amen. All right. Title of my sermon is Cry Out to El Shuwa. Everyone say El Shuwa. El Shuwa. Can we stand and read together? And I'll actually have it up here. So let's go ahead and stand together. This is from 2 Kings 4. The widow's olive oil. The wife of a man from the company of the prophets cried out to Elisha, "Your servant, my husband, is dead, and you know that he revered the Lord. But now his creditor is coming to take my 2 boys as his slaves." Elisha replied to her, "How can I help you? Tell me, what do you have in your house?" "Your servant has nothing there at all," she said, "except a small jar of olive oil." Elisha said, "Go around and ask all your neighbors for empty jars. Don't ask for just a few. Then go inside and shut the door behind you and your sons. Pour oil into all the jars, and as each is filled, put it to one side." She left him and shut the door behind her and her sons. They brought the jars to her, and she kept pouring. When all the jars were full, she said to her son, "Bring me another one." But he replied, "There is not a jar left." Then the oil stopped flowing. She went and told the man of God, and he said, "Go, sell the oil and pay your debts. You and your sons can live on what is left." Amen. Go ahead and have a seat. Good reading. Nice job. All right. Okay, so the wife of the man from the company of prophets. That's how it starts. The wife of a man from the company of prophets. I want to say here, talk about the audience, that who this passage is about. The wife of a man from the company of prophets. Now, this means he her husband actually was in the company of prophets. He was a committed church member, so to speak. He was committed to walking with Elisha and prophesying with them. So kind of translated to today, he was a committed church member. He was someone who wasn't on the periphery. He wasn't someone who just kind of lived and noticed there were prophets. He was on the inside. And there, so I've got a picture of a church there, just kind of to display that. And so if we bring it into modern day, this story is for, or this man could be someone like you if you are a committed church member. If you are, let's say your husband or you are a deacon, or you're a Sunday school teacher, or you host a Bible study, or you serve the breakfast here in the morning, or you help clean. You're a committed church member. You're a part of this community. And so as we're listening to this story, I want to remind you that this story could be for you as a committed church member. You know, Jesus did many things for people who were kind of on the outside. But in this story, Elisha was providing or a vessel for a miracle for someone who was on the inside. So even though we're committed church members, even though we're a part of the community of God, we can have difficult things happen in our life. So I just want you to think of that as you're listening to the story. This is someone who was on the inside. But there's a flip side of it. She was a widow. And in those times, I don't know if you know, but in Bible times, and actually all throughout the centuries, women were just considered property. Women were really nothing until they were married. And once their husband died, they were outcasts, ostracized, really shunned by society. So this woman who received a miracle from the Lord was an outsider at that point. So if you feel today that, you know, I'm kind of an outsider, I'm not really much of anything, I'm kind of an outsider. And this story is also for you, because that's who this widow was. Okay, here's her first comment to him. Okay, that's actually Moses, I think, but it works, right? So, it's a big, authoritative prophet was the idea. So she says, your servant, my husband, is dead. That's how she starts it. Your servant, my husband, is dead. And who does she go to? She goes to Elisha. Now, do you guys remember Elisha? Elisha is the one who got double anointing. He was a man who had signs and wonders follow him. I mean, amazing things happened with him. And she went to Elisha to get help. Now, Elisha is really a picture of Jesus. She cried out to Elisha. We cry out to Jesus. Now, the Hebrew meaning of Elisha is my God is my salvation. But I want to kind of talk a little bit about the word Elisha and the origin. It's really kind of fun. It's from El Shuwa. Everyone say El Shuwa. Now, El Shuwa means two things at the same time. If you kind of look at some of the origin. El Shuwa means God of supplication. And do you know what supplication means? What is supplication? Supplication. It's actually begging or asking earnestly, looking for help. So this is a man supplicating, begging earnestly. And El Shuwa also means, though, at the same time, God of riches. Isn't that interesting? God of supplication, God of riches. Shuwa can mean a cry for help, so that's that supplication. And there's another meaning, shava. These are all kind of connected if you look at the word. Shava means freedom from trouble. And then here's another one, El Yasha. Everyone say El Yasha. El Yasha. El Yasha means to deliver, to give victory. And then here is what it comes from. It's contracted from Elisha. Everyone say Elishua. Elishua. Elishua is to give width and breadth, to liberate, to give freedom on all sides, to make a wide and spacious. I thought that was a beautiful picture. So she is crying out to Elisha. We cry out to Jesus, who is all these things. Is that not a rich, rich meaning? All those things, that he is both the God of supplication and the God of riches. The God who gives freedom and victory. The God who gives width and breadth on all sides. She cries out to him. You know, I think sometimes we are tempted to cry out to someone who cannot help us. Is that not true? Who's done that before? Yes. You're tempted to do something, or to go somewhere, to do something in the flesh, instead of cry out to the one who can help you. But she goes to Elisha. She goes to the one with authority, the one who can save and deliver. Who you cry out to is important, is it not? When I was probably about 4 or 5 years ago, I had a baby. I've had 4 babies, and we talked about that. But after, sometimes you kind of lose track. After the 3rd baby, my husband lost his job. I mean, literally 2 days after she was born, he lost his job. And we had our in-laws in from Nepal, so we were supporting them. And needless to say, it was scary. Has anyone been in that kind of situation where you don't have money coming in? It's scary. You don't know how long you can last. So I decided, instead of crying out to Shuwa, I decided, I've got to fix this. I've got to fix this. I got to do something. And this is me and my, just do it mentality. And so I said, okay, I can do sales. I'm going to go get this sales thing, and I'm going to get it moving. Hired a babysitter, and I'm pumping breast milk and running off and doing, you know what it's like. Well, women, you might know this. Men, you probably don't, but, be thankful that you don't know what that's like. Anyway, so about 3 months into that, I collapsed. I had a collapse. Basically, my adrenals gave out on me. It was like an adrenal thyroid collapse. I was shaking. I could hardly get up in the morning. I had to have my parents fly in to help me take care of my kids. Awful. There, I was depressed. It was awful. And it all happened because I did not cry out to Shuwa. I decided to take it into my own hands and figure it out. And I'll tell you the good thing later. I had 6 months of rest, and God actually came through for us after we did the right thing, and I'll go into that after. Okay, let's move on. And you know that he revered the Lord. Okay, so again, remember this is a man from the company of prophets. So he revered the Lord. He honored the Lord. And it's interesting. We don't know if the widow really honored the Lord. I mean, in those days, she was probably kind of forced to do it. She was the wife. She had to just kind of go with him. But we don't know really what her heart was. But we know that her late husband honored the Lord. And I think it's interesting because Elisha doesn't refuse the miracle to her because it's from her husband. He gives her the miracle. Jesus doesn't refuse to work with us based on us being not having honored the Lord. He honors the faith of her late husband. And when I was reading this, I thought, this is really interesting. God blesses the obedience of one who you're related to, who has authority maybe over you, or who maybe is generationally connected with you. God honors that. And doesn't it say in Exodus and in the Old Testament, in Deuteronomy and Exodus, that God shows love to 1,000 generations to those who love him and have obeyed his commandments? 1,000. So I was thinking, wow, even if you are sitting here today And you're like, well, I've not been that faithful this week. I lied. I stole. I didn't read my Bible. Even if you're sitting here thinking, gosh, I don't really deserve much from God. He honors the faith of those who have gone before you. He honors the faith of your spouse in your life. It's a powerful thought. If you have a praying grandmother, or if you have an uncle who loves the Lord, a spouse, a sibling, God honors that relationship in your life. Who loves this couple? Come on, show me. I know there's a couple of us. Yes, I just think it's wonderful. In the 80s, growing up in Austria, I loved Princess Diana. I remember as a teenager, like, oh, wow, she's so beautiful, and all the stories. But, I watched their marriage with my girls. I went on YouTube and, pulled it up. And I love to see the little pictures of their kids. I don't know. I think my husband thinks I'm obsessed with royalty because I want to be royalty. I think we all have that in us, right? I want to be a queen. But anyway, this is Prince William, and I think it's the Duchess, right? Duchess, Kate. I was thinking about them one day. Or Prince William. I was thinking, wow, he's so lucky to be prince. I want to be a princess. He's so lucky. He gets all these servants, and he can do all these things, and, he gets to just be a prince. I was like, wow. And then I started thinking, and I think the Lord was working on me. Hey, Aimee, wow, the reason he's prince is because there was someone way back when, William the Conqueror perhaps, who went off and worked really hard, perhaps did some evil things, but he gained territory, right? Someone way back decided, I'm going to be king. And I'm going to tear through and get this territory so that I can be king. And because he did that, Prince William gets to be prince today. So I thought, well, you know what? Actually, Prince William does deserve to be prince because he is the son or the grandson or the great-grandson of someone who worked hard and gained that territory. And I want you to know today that it's the same in our life. God will bless the obedience and the faith of those who have gone before us. Even if you are the first one in your family to become a Christian, I bet you 1,000 generations back, there's got to be someone. You think about that? That's actually amazing. God is good. And you and I have a spiritual inheritance from that. Amen? Okay, so the widow, let's go back to the widow. Her circumstance was devastating, right? She was about to lose everything. And today in our lives, maybe some of you have something like that. It might be huge or it might be just small. There might be some little thing in your life that you're not happy about. It's frustrating. It's difficult. God, I need help in this area. And I'm going to share with you 2 of my cries. And I don't know. I'm not one who's gone through these terrible, terrible things. So my cries are very simple cries, at least the last couple. When I had my collapse 5 years ago, I felt like I could die. That was a difficult moment. But in the last few months, so probably about 3-4 months ago, actually, no, this is about more like a year ago because I've seen it develop. I started to become depressed because I was realizing in my life that I had no time. I am a mother of 4 kids. Anyone else a mother and understand that? You're just running. And I was working, and there's a husband to take care of, and there's a family, and there's a house to manage. And Jesus, I don't know what's going on. I'm feeling so overwhelmed and so tired, and I have no time. I have no time. And so I cried out to the Lord, Lord, give me time. Would you multiply my time? Would you give me time? I don't know what to do. And part of it is the way I am. Sometimes you are your own problem. because you're doing too many things. I'm like, oh, okay. But you don't know until someone actually shows you or God shows you. So my second cry was in Nepal. My husband and I will sometimes lead trips to Nepal. And we'll do missions trips in Nepal and also in Europe. And when we were getting ready to take our mission trip, about a week before, all of a sudden, everything was becoming difficult. Have you guys ever experienced that? It was resistance. I didn't know it at the time, but I was trying to call T-Mobile, and I couldn't get through. Like 10 calls, I could not get through. I was trying to take care of a business deal. Everything was going wrong. All these things were kind of coming up against us, including we get to the airport hours in advance, and we are running with 4 children to board because of all these things going wrong with boarding. We fly into Nepal, and we're about, ready to land, and they force us to circle the city for an hour because of high winds. Everything was coming up against us, and finally, it hit me, oh, this is spiritual. Wow, Jesus, this is like, our battle is not against flesh and blood. And God said, yes, this is what's going on. Okay, I get it. And so I cried out. I said, God, would you please send us hungry hearts amidst this resistance? Because the first couple of days there, people were upset. Family members were upset that we were there doing missions work. And God, please send us hungry hearts amidst this resistance. And so those are 2 of my cries to El Shuwa. And I'll share with you what I've seen in a minute. All right, so let's go on. How can I help you? Tell me, what do you have in your house? So it's interesting. Elisha responds to her with a question. How can I help you? He's immediately willing, right? You can tell. He's immediately willing. Jesus is immediately willing to help you, to help me. But his first question involves who? Her. It takes it right back to her. How can I help you? Tell me, what do you have in your house? It's like he's asking her to think. He's asking you and I to think, to ponder. What do I have in my house? How can you help me, God? Instead of putting it all on him. So, then the resource, right? He asks, what do you have? And it's interesting to me that Jesus likes to start with something. Have you ever noticed that in the Bible? That he created the universe out of nothing, right? But like when he changed water to wine, he started with water. When he fed the 5,000, he started with 5 loaves and 2 fish. He likes to start with something. I think it's our temptation, at least me, to grumble. God, I've got this problem, God. I've got a problem, and I'm grumbling about it. I'm complaining. First of all, you don't even think about involving God, right? Initially, you just want the problem to go away. But then, isn't the temptation to say, God, take care of it, right? God, do something. Please do something. Help. Instead, I think he's calling us to be a part of it. How can I help you? Let's dialogue on this. Let's co-labor on this together. Work out your salvation with fear and trembling, right? There's a work to be done. It's interesting. My finance story, I'm going to go back to that. 5 years ago when I had the collapse. So after I collapsed, I had 6 months of just like Jesus and me. We had a great time, relaxing, and I read the Bible. God really spoke to me a lot. I was with the kids. And out of that, I began to cry out, Jesus, will you give us a solution to this financial problem? We still need to make our ends meet. Now my husband got a job, but still it's just, we need a little more, God. And so I cried out, El Shuwa, would you answer? Would you answer us? And we began to dialogue. And I realized, I do have a sales skill. That is a resource. And, Silas, my husband, he understands web design. And you know what happened? God provided a client for us to start our own business, to do web design. And boom, it just came together. After we cried out and stopped and let him help us, these things started to align and our finances were supplied. Amen? So, your servant has nothing there at all except a small jar of olive oil. Now, it's interesting that at the beginning she says, your servant has nothing, right? Isn't that our response sometimes? Nope, nothing. I can't do anything. God can't do anything. There's no hope here, right? And that's what she, it's been too many years. I've had this problem for 40 years. It's not going away. She says, there's nothing. I've tried everything. What if she had stopped there? What if she had just stopped there? She wouldn't have gotten her miracle. But instead, she has an afterthought. It's like a ... Oh, well, there is this little bit of oil. And it probably was a little bit of oil. When I was in Nepal taking the kids, we went on a mission trip like 4 years ago. We had gone on a wonderful mission trip, and we had seen people saved and delivered, and it was so exciting. And you know how it is when you have a great conference or a mission trip and you come back? Has everyone had that experience? Oh, Jesus. It shouldn't be like that, right, Roger? No. We should always be walking in his presence. But unfortunately, this will happen. Or when you go home on a Monday after a Sunday. Anyone know that feeling? Yes, we came back from this mission trip. And in the morning, or in the evening, my husband flew out to go back to the States. And I stayed with our 4 kids in Nepal for like 3 more weeks. But that night, I felt so oppressed. I felt so dark, and I felt so tempted to be very, very depressed. It was, let me just describe this to you. It's the middle of winter. There is no central heating. It's not that cold. I mean, it's not Wisconsin cold. It's probably 40 degrees in the house. I mean, because what happens is the cold goes all the way through the walls because there's no central heating. So it's about 40 in the house. And there's no hot showers at our house, so we have to walk a couple of doors to go to the hot showers, bring the kids back. There's no electricity, because electricity just comes and goes. So we're using these lamps to look around, and I am feeling so dark and so depressed, and I have nothing. I have nothing. But the Lord puts this thought in my brain, well, you do have worship. No, Lord, I have nothing. Well, you do. You could worship. No, Lord, I have nothing. But still this nagging thought. I'm like, Lord, will you please leave me alone? But I knew what he was asking me to do. And so I gathered my children, and it was dark and cold, and I started getting them ready to go take them to get showers. And I started to quietly worship the Lord, just singing songs. And I felt nothing. But I started just going to worship a little bit. And I said, okay, I'm just going to keep singing. And by the time I was in the shower with them, of course, my in-laws, and the other thing in our home is that there's idol worship in Nepal is prevalent. So the spiritual world is just it's all around you. And in our home is idol worship because my in-laws. And so you feel it. The presence is right there. The ringing of bells, all the things that involve idol worship. But we go next door, and I start spraying my kids down. I mean, I am spraying them down. They're like, it's cold, Mom. And I am praying loud, singing louder and louder and louder, and I'm worshiping, and I still feel nothing. I'm almost singing angry. Have you ever done that? Jesus, I love you. And I'm worshiping and worshiping, and I still feel nothing. And I get the kids dried, and everyone's screaming because they're cold, and I come back to the house, we feed them, and in Nepal, you spoon feed kids. They don't eat on their own. So my grandmother, my in-laws, they're all spoon feeding the kids, and they're like, don't feed me. And anyway, finally it's about bedtime. And it had been about 2 hours of this. And even when I'm feeding them, I'm worshiping under my breath because that's all I had. That's all I had. It was so hard emotionally for me at that moment. And I'm turning the stairs to take my youngest child to bed. And as I'm turning up the stairs, all of a sudden, I feel this joy start to bubble up from the bottom of my stomach. And I feel it, and it rises up, and it bursts out of me, and that depression is gone. Amen? Wow. That is what it's like when you have nothing, but He comes and supplies the oil abundantly. So what do you have in your situation, in your place, in that little place of devastation or that huge place? What do you have to give Him? What resource do you have? Let's move on. All right, go around and ask all your neighbors for empty jars. All right, so here's what he didn't say, and this is my queen mentality coming back. He didn't say, go home, look at your table, and you will find $1 million sitting on your table. Do whatever you want with it. Thank you for visiting. Goodbye. He does not do that. Why does God, is anyone else like me and just would like God to do that once in a while? Yes, thank you very much. Come on, Lord. You know, I remember as a kid coming to the States as a missionary kid, and all I remember about the States was Cheerios, Gilligan's Island, and Bewitched for some reason. Those three things are my childhood America memories. And the smell of Newark, very humid smell. Strange things. But Bewitched, remember that? She would just go, boom. Isn't that our mentality sometimes? Just do this, Lord, for me, and it'll be done. But no, somehow, some reason, He doesn't work that way. I mean, now and then, right? Something like that will happen, but not all the time. He involves her, and He involves the one little tiny resource she has. And I think part of the process of this miracle happening in her life is her action, her involvement, community, creativity, activity, industry, humility, sweat equity, some of those things. God is a God of participation and process. Amen? It's the process that He loves. And what happens in the process? What happens when we process through these things with the Lord? We grow closer to Him. He grows closer to us. Isn't that what it's all about? It's hard though, right? It's not easy. Come on, Lord. Think about Naaman, right? Naaman went to get his leprosy healed. And then he was told, go wash in the Jordan 7 times. What? 7 times? Why 7 times anyway? But he had to do that. And once he washed 7 times, he was healed. Or think of the blind man who came to Jesus, one of the blind men. And Jesus got down on his hands and knees, and what did He do? Spit in the mud, made a mud patty, stuck it on his eyes, and if that wasn't enough, He said, now go wash in the pool of Siloam, I think. He had to do his part. For some reason, God desires our portion sometimes for His miracles in our lives. And the challenge is the miracle might take 5 years, right? Has anyone had a 5-year miracle? Has anyone had a 20-year miracle? Yes. Yes, it might take time, or it might just be a few weeks. My sense is that there are some of you in here with healing, that He is telling you, and He has told you to press into healing. And you have pressed in, and you have pressed in, and you might not have seen your miracle. but it might be the 100th time that you get that prayer where he comes. Yeah, so I really believe that he's saying that. We had a woman at our church, and Tom might have shared this testimony, who had pain in her back and her head for years post-surgery. She had metal put in. And when she was prayed for, and this is like 15 years after, at one Friday night service, she knew she was healed, and she went back to feel the metal, and it was gone. It was gone. She went to confirm, and the x-rays proved that the metal was completely gone. And this is our greeter. This is our greeter, Francisca, in our church. Isn't that amazing? No more pain. She had chronic pain because of the metal in her back. And so he is saying to you, press in. What is your portion? I think the other thing is interesting is, in the Midwest, I was so impressed flying into Minnesota where I was at a wedding. And Friday night, I looked out the cul-de-sac where I was staying, and everyone was mowing their lawn. I'm like, it's Friday. Why is everyone mowing their lawn? But it was so pleasant. I felt this, the Midwestern work ethic, the hard-working neighbors taking care of their houses. And I think sometimes it's easy for you to say, okay, Lord, I'll roll up my sleeves. I'll do what I got to do. But he might be calling you to do something different than what you would normally do. Right? Because, he's a God of process, and he's a God of relationship and friendship and dialogue. So he might be calling you to do something, to participate differently than you would normally participate. Amen? Okay, so now next. Ask all your neighbors for empty jars. Don't just ask for a few. What's interesting to me is if she would have just asked for one jar or 2 jars, maybe she would have saved one of her sons. Okay, maybe she would have gotten a couple more, then maybe 2 of her sons would be okay. But because she went all the way and obeyed him completely, she got a complete miracle. Both her sons were saved, and what? She could live the rest of her life on the money that was left over. That is a huge miracle. I think it's tempting for us, and I want you to, again, to think about that area that he's touched on, to just start well with him, but not finish up. Has anyone ever done that where you start well, God shows you something, but then you get kind of lost, confused? You're like, I thought God told me this, but now I don't really know. I want to challenge you to go all the way, which means you've got to be listening. You've got to be listening to his instruction. He might be saying, go take care of that addiction. Go let someone know you're addicted. Okay. But then, all right, made my call. I've got a problem. See you later. Goodbye. That's just one jar. That's not all the jars that you were supposed to collect. Gosh, I'm dealing with this, just anger. I've got anger. Well, call that person. They can do inner healing. Well, yeah, I'm going to get their number. One jar. That's a start. Go all the way so that you can receive your whole miracle. And the gathering, think about the gathering of jars. As a widow, to gather jars was hard work because remember, she's ostracized. She's an outcast. She had to go. It was a lot of work. Ask for jars. Why do you need jars? Why should I give you jars? These are my jars. She had to work hard to get those jars. And she was mocked. She was probably pitied. And we also may have to work hard. And here's the other thing. Her miracle comes through community. Through all the provision that she gets actually comes through all these jars. She would never had enough jars in her house. But because she goes to all her neighbors and gets jars from all of her neighbors, she has a miracle in her life. And I want to pose that for you too. We need each other. We need our community. God wants to pour in to your life through your neighbors, through your friends, through your pastor, through your church. It's not a lonely road. He wants to strategically use them in your life. Amen? I'm going to go back to my story on time. Remember? I cried out for time. I'm like, God, give me time, give me time. So all of a sudden, I started noticing things. That time was opening up, but in ways that I wasn't expecting. So I got a call from a couple. Hey, we'd like to babysit for you. Really? Are you sure you want to babysit for me? We have 4, Can we go for longer than just 1 hour? No. Like, wow, God has provided time. That was kind of cool. I wasn't expecting that. Provision through a neighbor. Someone else walks to my door, knock, 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 brings me a bag of clothes. I'm like, oh, what's this? She's like, well, I have a really cool friend who likes to go to Macy's. I'm like, oh, Macy's. Yes, and every 2 years, she gets rid of her wardrobe. Oh, and none of these clothes fit me, but I think they might fit you. Really? And this is about 5 months ago. I get a bag of designer clothes, nice clothes, given to me from this lady. And I think, and you know what I had just done? That morning, I had a little list of to-dos, go shopping for new clothes. And you know what I had done that morning? I had crossed that out of my list because I said, God, I just don't have time for this. Wow. Jesus knows what we need. And he knows how to multiply your time. Wow. Another moment was I had to hire an account manager for my business. And it was going to take us 3 weeks to do it. But I met a lady at church, and she said, I could do this for you. And I hired her within a day. Something that would have taken me a month down to a day. God, you are multiplying our time. Okay, then go inside and shut the door behind you and your sons. The door, interestingly enough, it symbolizes an entrance or a communication point in your life. I just want to encourage you to shut the door behind you and your children. This area in your life, when you decide to cry out to El Shuwa, he will call you to shut the door on the old way of thinking, on the old way of doing, the grumbling and complaining. Or maybe it's not grumbling and complaining. Maybe in this area of your life, you're just bitter. Maybe you're mad at God. Maybe you're just, I don't care. It's just too hard. I'm not going to care anymore. He's saying, shut the door. Next, pour oil into all the jars, and as each is filled, put it to one side. Can you imagine? Think about this. They're pouring oil the first time, and they're like, okay, this is interesting. Little oil going. Oh my, the oil, it's going. It's running. It keeps going. And they're like, whoa, it filled up. And imagine that the kind of wonder going to smiling, to laughing, to like by the 5th jar, they're like jumping around the house. I can imagine them spinning around. Wow, Jesus, you are providing. You are providing. And I believe that God wants us, as we begin to see his miracle of provision in our life, he wants us to take note. Take note of what he is doing. Give him credit. Count the miracle, so that it can be a testimony, not only to you, but to those around you. Amen? All right. And remember, this is the jar. The jar is just a common thing, right? Earthen vessel. But when he pours it into it, it becomes valuable. Just like us. It becomes valuable. So, I want to finish by sharing what happened in Nepal. In Nepal, I was crying out, remember? I was like, Jesus, everything is coming against us, including family and people we love dearly, coming up against us. They don't want your gospel. They don't want Jesus. The enemy doesn't want us here. It's very, very clear. Everything is going wrong here. Jesus, would you please send us hungry hearts? And so we went to a little mountain village called Gorka. Can you say Gorka? Gorka, oh, very good. Gorka is like the origin, the starting point of Nepal. And we went to that mountain village and we ministered at a little church up a bumpy road. And we came back home to the hotel. And the hotel owner and his wife, they were both owners, they started talking to us. And the wife, she said to me, do you know that tomorrow's Easter? And I just was shocked, to say the least. Yes, it is Easter. We're going to celebrate here. And we started dialoguing. And she had two middle school children. And she said, well, you know, I went to a missionary kid school when I was very little. But I'm a Hindu. But would you possibly tell my children the meaning of Easter? Whoa! Yes! And I tell you, my jaw again, the bottom of the floor. Wow, Jesus, yes! So we went on to tell her children the story of the gospel from from Adam to Revelation. She just let us have the floor. I was using Butterfingers because I brought Butterfingers to distribute as the cross for explaining the bridge and all those things. And both kids sat with us and asked the Lord to come into their life. It was so good. And she said, would you pray for me? And as I prayed for her, she wept and wept and wept. And I realized that she is something of an undercover Christian. I think she received the Lord at a young age and just doesn't have fellowship and is in this society. Isn't that amazing? Wow. He answered my cry. God, send us hungry hearts in this resistance. And boom, there it was. You know what's interesting is that don't you think God actually gives you the cry? Sometimes I believe that God actually gives us the cry because he's like, hey, I want to answer this in your life. Here's the cry I want you to cry. So now I'm going to go ahead and give a benediction. But as I do that, I just want to encourage you to cry out to El Shuwa. Everyone say El Shuwa. El Shuwa. Let's just cry. Say El Shuwa. El Shuwa. El Shuwa. And I invite you to cry out to him today as you go home. Cry out to him from that place of difficulty, desperation, from that place of complaining. Cry out to him and be ready to let him dialogue with you, to let him invite you to participate in the process. And then as he answers your prayer, I just want to invite you to count every time that he answers and give him credit, give him the glory. May the Lord answer you when you are in distress. This is from Psalm 20. May the name of God of Jacob protect you. May he send you help from the sanctuary and grant you support from Zion. May he remember all your sacrifices and accept your burnt offerings. May he give you the desire of your heart and make all your plans succeed. May we shout for joy over your victory and lift up our banners in the name of our God. May the Lord grant all your requests. Now this I know, the Lord gives victory to his anointed. He answers him from his heavenly sanctuary with the victorious power of his right hand. Some trust in chariots and some in horses, but we trust in the name of the Lord our God. They are brought to their knees and fall, but we rise up and stand firm. Lord, give victory to the King. Answer us when we call. Amen.